Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming today. I'm very excited to talk to you about this show. We are starting in the foyer because I think this piece is a really important addition, so I wanted to have us spend a little time in its presence. One of the things I love about art is its ability to transport us to places we've never been to before, and its ability to give us different perspectives on all kinds of topics. And that is definitely going on in this Spirit of the Land exhibition. First of all, artists have been doing this for centuries in America. They have been advocates for our beautiful landscape across the nation. In the early 1800s, Thomas Cole, painter, was painting the scenery that would become our national parks. And in the 1900s, Ansel Adams, of course, famous photographer, doing that same kind of work that was presenting to the public the beauty and the glory of our natural landscape. And some of the images that you see behind you may not be as technically perfect as an Ansel Adams photograph, but these are images from over 200 entries of people from the community around Searchlight, Nevada that were invited to express what they love and what's important to them about this landscape that's called Ah-VEE Kwa Ame in the Mojave language. So it's a beautiful thing when we get the power of artists who are our storytellers in our society combine with the stories of everyone, of telling as many possible perspectives on a place and a topic as we can. So let's head inside now. So I want to tell you a little bit about this landscape that we're celebrating. It is at the southernmost tip of Nevada, and it is a landscape that is part of the East Mojave Desert. It is a lush Joshua tree forest, Sonoran grasslands, high mountain granite peaks, beautiful riparian areas with desert springs, full of amazing animals like bighorn sheep, desert tortoise, Gila monsters, just really amazing and unique plants and animals in this part of the Mojave. And the center point of this area is called Spirit Mountain, or Ah-VEE Kwa Ame, mountain in a high place in the Mojave language. And this image here is a depiction of Spirit Mountain, Ah-VEE Kwa Ame, by tribal elder Paul Jackson from the Fort Mojave Indian tribe. And Paul did this painting and this painting for us. It's part of a whole body of work over decades that Paul Jackson has used as a teacher in order to instruct the tribal youth on their history and their culture and their origins. For the Mojave people and the 10 Yuman language speaking tribes of the Southwest, this landscape, Ah-VEE Kwa Ame, is their place of origin. They believe that the entire world started at Ah-VEE Kwa Ame, and it is like the Garden of Eden, as Paul Jackson says. So it is, of course, a most sacred place to them. And in fact, the Fort Mojave tribe split off from the other part of their tribe in the 1800s during a reservation period where all of the Mojave were encouraged to go south off of their land. And the members of the Fort Mojave tribe stayed put because they believe it's their sacred charge from their creator to stay and protect this landscape, which they've been doing for hundreds of years. And I want to mention that because, of course, it was during the 1800s that migration happened through the period from settlers that were moving west across America and moving east from the California coast. And it was during this period that the Mojave had the most new interactions with these settlers. And, you know, all of what we hear mythologically about those uprisings and trouble with the government from the Mojave perspective is coming from them wanting to stay in their ancestral land because their creator told them to. And I think that that really illustrates how important our stories and our connections to place are. This is a work by a co-curator of the exhibition, photographer and installation artist Mikayla Whitmore. Mikayla has created 2 images. One is how she found this tree in the landscape, which was decorated with holiday decorations, but this was not during the holidays. This was probably in February or March that this happened. And then Mikayla took all the decorations off and they came back the next morning and also took an image of the place clean. And then this is actually some of what I'm going to call holiday trash at this point, because it's festive when we have it up and it's serving a purpose, but when we walk away from it and leave it in the environment, and then it's trash, right? It's no different than any other object that we leave to degrade in a natural area. So this is all trash that came from there. This is just a small portion of the trash that is left all year long on Spirit Mountain Ah-VEE Kwa Ame. It is up a road that is unfortunately named Christmas Tree Pass. And Christmas Tree Pass is so named because there used to be pine trees there, and there are still juniper trees. During the mining era, those trees were used for timbers and structures and fuel, and it got its nickname Christmas Tree Pass, and people started in the 1970s, early 80s, they started to have family traditions, also very important, also cultural traditions, where people would go on camping trips or day trips during the holidays and decorate a tree. So obviously there is a disconnect between this story and Paul Jackson's story, and the story of having a natural place that people love to go, and we like going there because it's natural and healthy and intact and glorious, and we can see forever, and we're away from everyone else, and we're away from the trash and the hubbub and the built environment of our cities. So these are some of the stories that really populate many landscapes if we just look around us. I think that it's interesting to showcase them, certainly for all of these works that are about one area, but I also think that this place is a microcosm of places all around the world that all have these layers of stories. They all have these layers of history and cultural use, and my guess is that the people doing this don't necessarily know that this is a sacred place to another culture, and that leaving their trash there throughout the year is extremely disrespectful. I also am guessing that the people doing this, which is very innocent and fun and beautiful, don't realize the environmental impact that this is having to the place that they love visiting. So a part of this exhibition has also been pairing artists with scientists and researchers to find out about this environment as a whole. And one of the things that our research partners have told us is that animals like the desert tortoise, like the birds that inhabit the area, the deer, the rabbits, all of these animals are seeking food and water. And these shiny, bright, wonderful, juicy, delicious looking things all look like food to those animals. So that is an interesting part of the story. And we've heard about this in other environments, like in the ocean. We've heard about the birds that are eating the plastics and then they get in their stomachs. And so I think that what can we do about this? Well, we can see it visually in front of us and have an impact that this is probably less than somewhere between 5 and 10% of the total trash that has been picked up there in the last year. It's a really small amount. We went through bags and bags and bags and bags of trash, and we only got some of it. So I think that this can have a visual impact for us to ask ourselves, what is our imprint on environments? Because this area is a remote place, it's about 50 miles south of Las Vegas, and it is between Las Vegas and Laughlin, if you've ever been to southern Nevada. There are a number of small villages that populate it, and it's a rural area. So getting the voices and the different perspectives together to talk about this place also means getting some of the voices of our local artists of the area. And this piece is by Maria Volborth. She is an artist from the Nelson and Searchlight area. And this is a painting on silk, actually. Really beautiful as you go close up. And this is a painting that came from a conversation with scientists about desert mistletoe. So that whole beautiful red image in the middle represents the desert mistletoe berries. And that mistletoe plant coexists with other desert plants like the cat claw acacia tree. So this is one of the things that Maria loves seeing as an artist and wants to see continue to exist in the environment. That has an interesting dialogue with this piece, I think, because it's also very colorful, it's bright, it's a celebration of desert forms. And this piece is by a Las Vegas artist, Nancy Good. She became fascinated by the life cycle of the desert, how ancient things are. And these areas of bright color represent lichens from the area. And lichens can grow, the desert lichens in particular, the Custos lichens, they grow very slowly. They grow about a millimeter a year. So, you know, like it's like an inch in 100 years. You know, so if you see a lichen that's this big, it is an ancient creature. And there are so many ancient things out there. I think we should be considering the Mojave Desert more like an old growth forest, like what we think of as our forests in Northern California. One of our artists, Paula Jacoby Garrett, she is a science instructor at a Nevada college, and she has been studying and is concerned about the screw-bean acacia tree, the screw-bean mesquite. And the screw-bean is a very important tree. The pods are edible. You can use the wood, and it is an important cultural plant for tribes in the area, and it has significantly declined in its populations in recent years, and people don't know why. So Paula has created this piece with actual screw-bean mesquite pods in these kind of petri dish forms. And because we have so many ancient ones out here, this piece here by Chelsea Mosher, who is a LA area photographer, she actually teaches part-time here. This piece is of a Joshua tree, and Joshua trees can live 800 to 1,000 years. So this particular Joshua tree doesn't look too huge. It's maybe 400 or 500 years old, you know, like before the birth of our nation. And this piece, you might notice, it feels like it's vibrating back and forth. And the name of this piece is Industrial Frequency. This is one of the Joshua trees that would be removed if this area of Ah-VEE Kwa Ame turned into an industrial wind turbine farm, which is one of the proposals, one of the many proposals for industrial use of this area over the past 15 years. And so this is part of the densest Joshua Tree forest that exists. It's much more dense than Joshua Tree National Park. And the forest that this is part of, just on the other side of the highway, is protected as a wilderness area. That area is called Weethump, which means ancient ones in the Paiute language. So this is really an illustration of how shaken this area would be, that we're not talking about a landscape that is young and changeable and changes all the time. We're talking about a landscape that is absolutely ancient. If we go back to Spirit Mountain for a second, the Mojave believe that this is their point of origin, the beginning of creation with this mountain. Geologically, this mountain belongs to one of the oldest groups of landscapes to be at the surface of the earth. So it is, I believe it's up to 1.5 billion years old. And that was the period of time when there was no oxygen breathing creature on the earth. The creatures of the earth were in the ocean. They were single-celled organisms that gave off oxygen as a byproduct. And during the time that this mountain existed, those creatures were giving off oxygen and populating our oceans to the point that they created an oxygen atmosphere, and all oxygen-breathing life, which means all life as we know it, was created during the time when this mountain still existed, which is amazing and really parallels this mountain's role for the Yuman-speaking tribes as an origin place. Get a little emotional when I talk about that, because it's such a beautiful story. And you know, there are sacred mountains all over our area. Saddleback, Mount Baldy, Mount Charleston, just by Las Vegas. And you know, this is a landscape that, of course, in our age, when the earth is changing, and it is changing because in part of our interactions with it, I think that we really should embrace, all of us, the idea of landscape as sacred. And one of the most moving things to me that I have not mentioned yet is that this land is proposed as being the next protected landscape for Nevada. This could become Nevada's 4th national monument and protect almost 450,000 acres, which is the entirety of all of these stories and spaces and cultural points and history and ancient creatures. And we're so close. It's a bill in Congress right now, and it would be called Ah-VEE Kwa Ame National Monument. And it would be called that because the Mojave tribe, in particular the Fort Mojave Indian tribe, which is right there, still at the base of the mountain, they have been a driving force in unifying all of these communities and working with conservation organizations to put this proposal forward. And they have lent us their name, their sacred name for this place. People were not calling this Ah-VEE Kwa Ame before now that were not from the Mojave tribe. They were calling it Spirit Mountain, random wasteland south of Las Vegas, area around Searchlight, you know, mining camp place, you know. We had all kinds of other names for it, you know, the place I got to drive through to get to the Colorado River. And not that there's anything wrong with those other names, maybe with the exception of Christmas Tree Pass isn't totally helping us. However, I think it's so amazing and special that the Mojave have given us this name that is their sacred name for the place, and are asking for all of the people in these communities, for Maria Volborth from Nelson, and Nancy Good from Las Vegas, and Leland Means from Orange County here, all of the artists and community members and the country, essentially, Congress, the president, all of us, to call it by its sacred name and treat it as sacred. Okay, yeah, I can't even talk more about that. That's like, it's really amazing and special.